So we are just going to do a little bit of video analysis here, and we're going to focus on the video from today. That is 030120, Liz, Andrea, Aaron, Tracy, the quad number 3. We're starting this video at about 7 seconds in. So before we get going, I do want to say that I think the boat was looking actually really good today. And if you go through the videos that we took of this quad today and we compare it with the other quads that were on the water, then hopefully you guys will also see that the difference between those boats is not very much at all, actually. And in a lot of ways, this boat looked better than some of the other people that were out there on the water. So I think there was a lot of really good stuff going on in that boat. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to work from Liz to Andrea to Aaron and then to Tracy. So if you only want to hear about yourself, sort of look at the total time that this video takes and go, first quarter is going to probably be around Liz, the second quarter will kind of be Andrea, the third quarter will be Aaron, and the final bit will be Tracy. So you can sort of hone in on yourself if you want, or likewise, if you don't want to listen to anything about yourself and you just want to hear me trash the other people, then you can sort of skip the quarter that you're in and listen to what I say about the other people. But like I say, for the most part, I think it was going very well today, and especially considering you guys haven't been on the water very much, then yeah, you should be very proud of how it's going. Okay, so we're going to start with looking at Liz here. And I apologize as well, my sinuses are acting up, so if I sound terrible, it's because my sinuses are going crazy on me. So if I stop to blow my nose, I apologize. I'm sorry if it's so disgusting. All right. So Liz, if we look here, and we've actually just paused it here, but we look here and notice how sort of tight these shoulders look. If we compare these shoulders to, let's say, Aaron or Andrea or Tracy, we see these shoulders hanging much lower in the sockets, whereas these ones here are coming very up near the ear. So we want to let those shoulders sort of hang nice and low. What we also see is the arms here for Aaron, we see these long sort of straightish arms, and then in Tracy we see these long very straight arms, right? So this is what we want. We see here this bend in the arms, so that tells us that we're pulling early. And because we're pulling early, we see here how the legs haven't really driven a lot. So this puts the weight on these smaller muscles of the arms. And this is one of the reasons that the shoulders are actually getting tight, because these muscles are having to contract to brace to hold as we try to put the weight on these smaller muscles. So if we just let these arms hang through there and we sort of hold the body strong, let those big muscles take that weight and let these quads really sort of drive through the boat, that's going to relax these shoulders. So think of the shoulder, the top of the shoulder, we want as much distance between the ear and the shoulder as possible. So the lower we can push those shoulders down during that leg drive phase, the better it will be, because that means everything up here is going to be more relaxed. We're going to be able to hang those arms a little bit nicer. And that's going to take some of the strain off the upper body. Now, as we progress through forward, again, we see this here very tight, right? Very early pull. We still see Tracy here hanging very, very nicely. Right? We see here the shoulders have passed the hip here a little bit, but this isn't bad compared to what you normally do. Normally those shoulders get back past the hip fairly early, but this you've held off for most of the leg drive, so that's actually looking much better. Right? Now as we come in here, we notice here's the hands still fairly away from the body, right? You still got a fair bit of distance before you get to the body, but we see those blades starting to come out here. So, and notice again, the shoulder itself is still kind of in front of the torso. If we keep those shoulders and draw them around with the upper back muscles, we kind of squeeze those shoulder blades together. That's going to help keep those blades buried in the water just a little bit longer. That's going to keep it buried. It's going to keep that power driving right through to the end of the stroke. There we go. And we can see how we haven't really opened up the chest here, right? And if we compare this to Aaron, right, we can see how Aaron's shoulders are much more open, and she's kind of opening that chest and drawing those shoulders around. And that's going to let her get that nice relaxed look and draw power all the way through. Here we're just a little bit tight. So if we can relax that, that's going to be a much more comfortable stroke for you. But here you have pretty nice layback. Like this looks pretty good, right? If we look at the angle from shoulder to hip down the leg, this is a pretty nice amount of layback. We look at that, that's almost dead on with Tracy back here. So that's looking pretty good. Likewise, the blade has extracted from the water pretty nicely, right? The blade is almost out here before you start feathering. So this is pretty decent. Now you've got a lot of room here. So we can get a good push down and then try to keep that blade nice and high as the blade feathers and brings the bottom up to the top. We're going to see what happens here. So there we go. We get lots of clearance here. Boom. And we've actually done a pretty good job here, feathering that blade nice and high. We've still got room to go, so we can lift these blades up just a little bit more. We see here, back at Erin, how that blade, her hands are just a little bit more down at the thigh. So you can see how there's this space here, but there's no real space here with Erin. So this here, and we see that just extra little bit of height, which is good. But if we compare it to Tracy here, Tracy, look at this. She's got like a 90-degree bend on that wrist. So that hasn't really pushed the blade down. We can see here how it's hugging right near the water. She wants to keep that wrist as flat as possible, push down, get the blade shaft up away from the water. Andrew's doing a pretty good job here too, right? So we want to get that blade up away from the water and then start doing our arms away. So here we're looking at you. Look at this. We get a pretty nice arm extension here. The legs are still flat. So this is good. We're getting arms away. We're getting that forward pivot. We've cleared the knees. We've got that body angle. The knees aren't coming up before the hands pass it. But here, notice how we've dropped back to the water now. So we've seen a change in that hand height and that blade height. See there how that blade drops down to the water, right? We look at the spoon. It's got really nice height here. And then it comes back to the water here, right? And as we do that, what that's going to do is, number one, it has vertical motion, and that's going to create some oscillation in the boat, which has the boat bouncing up and down, which is going to sap speed. But also what's a bigger issue is that we risk these blades now touching the water, which is just like driving with the emergency brake on. It's going to slow us down a lot, but it's the key thing for that, though, is it's not just that the boat is slowing down, but now that you have to use more energy to get it back up to that speed. Whereas if we can keep that boat clipping along, each stroke we don't have to use as much energy. We can sort of use our energy to maintain speed rather than to re-accelerate. And that means we're going to be able to actually have a higher output over a longer period of time. So we want to keep those hands nice and low as they pass the knees. It's easy when they're this side of the thigh because we've got the thigh as a guide. But once we pass here, we have to kind of look at where the rigger is maybe, and sort of use that and kind of push our hands down towards that rigger a little bit. Okay, so we're coming up here. Now, as we pass these shins, right? So right about here, right? The hands are sort of past the shins. We're getting to the ankles. Here's about where we want to start rolling this blade, right? So we can have it prepared for the catch. So as we come up, so all this bit here, we can be, oh, there you go. So here we can be rolling, 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 rolling. So when we get to that point of maximum compression, we drop it right in. Now, we see here that this blade here is closer to the water than that far blade, right? So we want to make sure that that far arm, the right arm, pushes down just a little bit more to bring that boat off of starboard side, because it looks like the boat is a little bit unbalanced here. And then here's your point of maximum compression. So we want to hit this position left hand over right, which is good. We don't see left hand over right here with Erin. Erin's left hand is lower than her right. Tracy's, they're pretty even, right? But we've got a little bit of height advantage here. Same thing, Andrea, looking not bad. But notice here how the blade's going into the water, but it's not fully squared yet, right? So we want to make sure that we do get it fully squared, and rolling that blade in advance is going to really make sure that it's totally prepared to go. So there you go. So the blade is now fully squared, but we see that we've actually had some opening up before that blade gets fully squared, right? Because there it's fully squared. We've opened up a bit. And here we see these shoulders already kind of bracing. They're already tightening, getting ready for that impact that it's going to have, right? So let those shoulders relax. And then here we're going to watch these arms. See how they're pulling right away. We're pulling that blade into the water rather than just lifting those hands from here, having them go straight up to place the blade in the water and then just hang on as the body drives back. We're actually pulling those arms towards the body, and it's going to move the blade forward into the water this way. We don't want the blade going into the water while it's already moving forward, because that means we're not grabbing the water and then accelerating the boat. We're kind of rowing in and trying to join the boat in progress, which we don't really want to do. And here is where you actually get the blade buried. On this side, not on the far side. We can see those blades are still out. But that's okay. That, I think, is more of a balance issue on this stroke than anything else. But about here is where this blade buries. So we can see that we're kind of at 3/4 slide or so. So this whole first bit, where the legs are going from here to there, that's kind of wasted time. We're just sitting there hanging around while the blade is kind of going into the water, and now is where that blade is actually going to engage, and it's going to start driving that boat. So if we can put that blade in and get it buried, and this is something that, again, not unique to you, right? I talk to lots of people. Tracy will verify that I talk to people about this all the time, and this is one of the toughest things that we have. So if you can get that, you are going to be way ahead of the game. Then again, we see these arms pulling very early, right? We see hang, hang. Even Aaron gets a little bit of arm pull here, right? But Tracy's hanging very well. We see some arm bend here. We see arm bend here. Let those arms hang, right? Don't be worried. The shoulders aren't going to get ripped out of their sockets, so we don't have to hang on to that and start pulling too much. Just let them hang, right? But again, when we see this here, you've come through. You've actually held off the shoulders fairly decently, right? And then here we see still room to go, but because we're now pulling with the arms, they tend to want to drop into the body and into the lap. So it's not these muscles which are going to keep those hands up and pulling through nice and high to keep the blade buried. So we see those blades coming out early again. In the shoulders, we still see the sockets. The shoulder itself is kind of in front of the torso rather than behind the torso. Aaron, you got a lot of layback going on. You should probably cut that a little bit less, right? Try to match Liz and Tracy here. Don't lay back so much. Okay. But again, we see nice extraction. Blade stays nice and nice straight up. Look at that. That is a nice freaking release. That was a nice release, Liz. Really solid. Look at that. I mean, you extracted too early, but the way it came out was really nice. Look at that. Comes out clean. Feathers high. That is like textbook what we want to see. That is really good. Same thing here, right? Nice high. Look at that. Kudos to Aaron and Liz on this extraction. This is really nice. Look at them both getting those hands nice and down. Lots of height on the blades. That's going to let that boat run really, really well. Really nice job. Okay, so now we're going to go back to about the, hang on here, about the 10-second. Going to back it up to here. We're going to go for Andrea now. So we're moving on to Andrea. So the TLDR version for Liz, right? Let the shoulders relax, let the arms hang, right? Let those arms hang, relax the shoulders. Okay, Andrea, you always have really good, strong, straight posture. This is really solid, okay? We see a similar thing though. We see see how this here is a lot of arm pull, right? So we don't see that there, it's all arms. And if we see these other ladies, they've got that layback, which really allows them to sort of get the body, the bigger muscles of the core really getting involved. So if we can get some layback in there before the arms pull, that's going to let those bigger muscles do that job. All right, we're going to take it off these smaller arm muscles, put it onto that nice big body muscle. And again, because we're pulling it in, we see these blades coming out a little bit early. Right, use the upper back muscles here to kind of draw it and squeeze it with those shoulder blades. That's going to be nice. That was a nice extraction there by Andrea, right? Look at this. Blade comes out. Probably rolling a little bit early. See here how we're rolling it a little bit early, but that's not too bad. But when you do extract, boom, look at that. Nice height here. And if we look here, we see very little distance between the hands and the thighs, right? This is what we're looking for. Look at this, same thing here, right? Nicely done. Now, watch the hands here. We've had a nice extraction, okay, really nice extraction. But watch the direction that the hand here actually moves, this bit of white, okay, as I advance it. There we go, that first bit, see from there, boom, it's moving up. See that hand, it goes up, and we see here, it actually comes back down to the water, right? Whereas if we kind of kept it down and gone straight out, that would be beautiful, right? It would just be nice, high above the water. That boat's going to keep gliding really, really nice. Instead, we push that blade a little bit more towards the water. However, it's not too bad because we can see here by the time we get to the midpoint, we're actually doing not too bad, right? We can probably get the hands a little lower, right? I think Aaron's doing not too bad here. Tracy's got a little bit more height, but this is not bad. This is not bad. Not bad at all. Oh, there we go. Now look at that blade. Boom, back down to the water. And you see it actually hit the water here, right? So just keep those hands a little bit, a little lower. And this is common because, again, look at Aaron. We're back on the water. Look at Tracy, back down near the water, right? See here, very close, right? We get good height, good height. We advance. See how it droops down to the water, right? Here's looking good, but now it droops down to the water. And it always happens when those hands pass the knees because we no longer have that visual representation. We saw it with Liz, we're seeing it with you, and we see it with these other ladies as well. Right, so keep those hands low, right? Change your focus from sort of the thigh up to the rigger, thinking about, okay, how close can I get to the rigger to keep that blade shaft nice and parallel? We got nice body angle here, nice forward body angle as we come forward. Now here, see how the body angle changes from here. Look at that change in angle to there, right? So here it's very steep, right? We compare that to Tracy. Tracy, you're probably a little steep as well. Liz is not too bad, right? We don't want to reach though, right? And we see here with the shin, we're not fully compressed. So instead of getting that full compression, we've reached forward. We let the shoulders drop. And it's here it is. There you go. So watch the shoulders. See how high they are above the gunnel here? And then watch how they drop into the boat here, right? They drop closer to the gunnel there. And that tells us that we've reached, right? We're not just pivoted forward now. We've reached because those shoulders have sort of slumped inside the boat. And then when we start going, when we start taking that stroke, we will see, here we go, that when that angle changes now through this first part, the legs aren't really actually moving much, right? The legs aren't moving much here while that body's opening. And that means because we've now overextended ourselves at the catch, to get back into a strong position, our body has to lift those shoulders back up. And that puts all the weight of the stroke onto that back. And we don't want to have it on the back because these muscles here can't take that weight nearly as much as the legs can. So if we can keep sitting up a little bit more as we come to the catch, as we come to this point here, set your angle so that it's more like here, with your shoulders kind of being here rather than down here. And that's going to put you in an already strong position to let those legs drive. Even if we have to have a little bit of an opening here, a gap between the thighs and the body, which we ideally won't, because here we see it's pretty full, here we see it's pretty full contact, but we see a little bit of a gap here, which ideally Aaron will get rid of. But this is better to have this at a strong position than to reach and be laying on the legs, because we don't want the backs to suffer any injuries, right? That's not something that's going to keep us sort of enjoying getting out there on a regular basis. We're going to end up with an injury and then we'll be out for, a few weeks or something like that. Nobody wants that to happen. All right, so we're going to progress through. Now, again, we see like Liz here, we had a late preparation of the blade. So we come up, when the hands pass these shins, we're covering a lot of stuff here, not just on you, but on everybody. So if it sounds like there's a lot of information, there is a lot of information, but that's okay. Don't worry, we'll get lots of kilometers on the water and everybody's going to have lots of time to practice these things. So don't get overwhelmed and don't never really give yourself more than one or two things to focus on at a time. But when we get to about here, this is about where we want to start preparing that blade. What it's going to do is, notice how just as we pass here, like I say, that's where the hands start to drift up. But if we roll those blades nice and early, it forces us to keep the hands down as well, because we have to have room for that blade to square up. And we'll notice here, right, Erin very low on the water, but when she starts to square, see how that shaft angle changed, right? It came back up because she had to make it change to make room for that blade to prepare. Now, if she had just kept it at this height the whole way, she wouldn't have had to change. We wouldn't have had that vertical motion in the boat slowing us down, and she would have been in exactly the same position as she is here. Same thing here. If we get that roll happening earlier, it's going to help keep that blade up nice and high. And as we saw, I'm just going to back you up here. Look at this nice height, right? We had this really nice height. So if we can get that blade rolling right here, it's going to prevent that drop down to the water. It's going to keep that blade where it should be. And then when we get to full compression here, now that blade will just drop in and we'll have all 4 blades going in right at that same time, right? Tracy, don't go in early, okay? Tracy, look at you jumping the gun. Look at this. Holy, take your time. Follow the person ahead of you. All right, so now once we go, finally the blade gets buried here. So again, we see we've opened the body and we've driven the legs some by the time the blade is buried. On this side, far side is still out of the water, but that's okay. Like I say, I think that's more a balance issue than anything else. So this is why we want to take that catch at nice full compression, right? And if we can get that at full compression, that's going to give us the longest possible stroke, right? It's going to give us the most powerful part of the stroke, because that is going to be all leg stuff. The stuff we take right at the catch is going to be the legs. One of the reasons that Tracy does go very fast is because even though her catches could still be better and could still be longer and more well-timed, she does take them fairly long. She has good extension, and she really lets the legs do the work. So we can see here, look at this. Her blade is buried. She's early. Tracy, you're early. But she's buried here, but look at this compression. Shins are still at 90, right? She's got good angle against the thighs. So this is a stroke where it's going to be all leg stuff for that first bit that she's really going to get good power out of, and that's what's going to propel the boat. So there we go. So now we see the arms bending here. So same thing, we want to let those arms hang, keep the shoulders in front of the hips. And the shoulders actually stay in front of the hips here pretty nicely. You hold, like, you don't pass too early, but we see a lot of arms. So let those arms hang as well, right? Don't just hold the shoulders in front, but let those arms hang. And then when we do the layback, we'll have the big muscles of the body, and then we'll move on to the smaller muscles of the arms right at the end of the stroke. Okay. There you go. And then another nice extraction there, though. Look at this. Another nice extraction. Blade comes out pretty clean. Bottom comes up to meet the top. That's pretty nice extraction here by all 3 people. Tracy is still in the water, though. Tracy didn't extract. She was the first in, and she's last out, okay? Which is actually a good thing. It's bad that she's out of time here, but it shows that she's being very long at both ends of the stroke, and that's going to really move a boat very well, right? So, and what we see here, one thing that she does very well here is see these shoulders, right? We see how these shoulders have opened up and they've squeezed back. That's let her blade stay connected through that whole stroke, and that's going to give her very, very good power all the way through to the release. Okay, we're going to come back to Erin here. All right, Erin, so we're moving on to you. Now, what we see here is, notice how these hands are very high up, right? So we could probably lower these hands some, because look at how high up the water that's coming here, right? It's a little high up here, it's a little high up here, but it's probably the highest up here, because we see these hands not quite as high as these. These hands are also a little lower, and we see how much lower on the shaft it is there. But then as we come to the body, right, this is much better arm hang as well, Erin, than you used to have. You used to have like a lot of arm pull, and this is looking much better. Look at this. This is holding those arms off way better than you used to. Nice job. Again, though, look how high these are, right? We're seeing almost a 90-degree thing. And where do we pull to? We pull to about here on our ribs, right? We pull to about here. So if we extrapolate that out, that's about where the hands want to be through that drive. We just want those spoons buried. And we can see when you're pulling, looking at your face, like you're working hard, you're doing a lot of work, which is great. As a coach, we love seeing that. But what we don't love seeing is this depth, because you're doing a lot of that hard work, but you're not getting the return that you deserve for it, because there's causing a lot of drag and turbulence. So we want to make it so that the effort you're putting in is the return you're getting on boat speed. And if we shallow those blades up, we're going to be able to get a lot more boat speed. So try to think about those hands never getting higher than where they're going to come into the body, right? Even Tracy can shallow her blades up here a little bit. Now, so watch what happens here. We're going to watch the path of the hands as you come into the body. From here, really high, 90 degrees out, right? We were basically 90 degrees out almost from the shoulder. And then look at that angle that the hands are traveling, right? We want to keep that horizontal, but here it's very much hypotenuse of a triangle, right? It's very angular going down, right? And if we compare that to Tracy here, let's say, right? Look at this here, right? Much more horizontal. Still a bit of an angular, but much more horizontal. And you can see how, again, that holds her blade in longer, right? Rather than up and down, draw it in and keep it on these upper back muscles. Open that chest as we swing it through, draw it in nice high to the ribs here, but keep it at the ribs here as well. Okay, we're gonna move it forward. We look at the extraction, nice extraction. Blade comes out pretty much straight up and down. Look at this, really nice height on that feather, really nice. We're down at the thighs. This is what we want to see, right? This looks really good. Really nice. Oh, Tracy, look at that, just dragging the water. Whew. Can't believe it. Getting across, look at the height on this. This is nice, really nice. We've got a little bit of a softness here in the body, and we see that Tracy rocks over and gets that pivot very quickly. The rest of us are a little bit slower getting out of bow, right? We want to be out of bow nice and quick, set that body angle, and then get onto the slide. So Tracy, though, as bow seat, we need to moderate our speed. If the people ahead of us aren't coming out this fast, we need to try to change our pace a little bit to match them, right? So I like the fact that you're really coming out quick, you're setting that body angle, you're coming over, but we want to time it with these other people, especially on the slide, right? So really just take your time on the slide and let other people catch up to you if need be. So again here, Aaron, we're back to you. We want these hands here, they're past the shins now, and we see how that blade drops back down, right? We talked about it briefly before. But if right here, before those blades start to drop, right here is where we start to roll to the square, that's going to keep those blades nice and high. And you can see here at your catch position, actually, you get pretty nice height here above the water. The blade is prepared. Arms can extend more. And remember, I talked to you briefly about this in the boathouse. If we straighten those arms and kind of reach them out to their full extension, that's going to let those blades arc back. And when we get somebody who's as long as you are, if we can really maximize that length, that's going to be a real boon to the crew, because we can really get a long stroke, a big, huge sweeping arc on that blade. It's one thing that Tracy does very well. If you look at a video that we might have of her from straight on, she usually is very wide open. Ray as well. Ray is fantastic at this. Ray gets great arm extension, great width at the catch. So you can sort of look at some of their videos to see what we're talking about. Okay, blade goes in now, and as we saw with some of the others, watch the shoulders. So see how the shoulders kind of open, right? And that sort of tells us we're taking that catch a little bit with the body rather than just letting the hands lift. So just think about those hands just lifting up. We've got a little bit of gap here between the thigh and the body, so we could get a little more forward pivot. The compression is nice though, because if we look, the shins never really go past 90, so this is really nice compression. We can get maybe a little more forward pivot. If you can't get that though, then that's okay. Just sort of keep working on the flexibility and keeping that body angle nice and strong. What we don't want is lunging for more, reaching for more, which is something that Tracy does occasionally as well. And as we see, Andrea does it as well. Don't feel bad, either of you, because that's something that I had a big problem with. I'd always reach for more at the catch. And it took me till probably my third year of rowing to remedy that issue, right? But if we can nip it in the bud for you guys before 3 years, then so much the better, right? We don't want you taking as long as I did to get that sorted out. But again, this is pretty nice though, like pretty nice long stroke, right? And that entry is nice. Look at this. It's going in. Very similar to Tracy here, actually. We're going in. We're not moving forward as we enter. We're just entering as we enter, which is pretty good, right? We've got a little bit of forward, like a little bit of drive, but not too much. There we go. And we see here a little bit of slippage at the top part there where the slide sort of slid out when it wasn't fully engaged. But here we see it lock in, locks in now, and now we're moving, right? Now we're doing some good work. And again, we come out nice and clean. Look at this, nice and clean, nice and clean. You guys as a crew had pretty nice extractions, right? Pretty nice extractions, except for one of you. One of you, we won't say who that was. But look at this, pretty good height on 1, 2. This one came out really nice. And then it kind of dropped back down. We see that change in the blade height, right? So there you go. And Aaron, don't lay back quite so far. Look at this. Woof, it's like you need a nap, right? So we want to sit up a little bit more. Look at this kind of angle. Look at this kind of angle, right? So just sort of from hip to shoulder here instead of here. So not a ton, but just a little bit less layback, and that's going to put you in a stronger position. All right. We're going to go back to about 8 seconds, and we're going to take a look here at Tracy. So as we come through, we see again, fairly decent horizontal draw, right? In here, we see maybe a little bit of tension right there in these shoulders right at this point here as we transfer, but not too bad, not too bad. And we're doing a good job. Look at this. Shoulders are just passing the hips, but the knees are like the legs are flat, so this is good. We've held the arms. They're hanging off nice. Nice horizontal draw, and we see how this holds it in the water very long, right? So you get good usable power. Nice. Now, here's what we have seen actually on these strokes, right? We see this again and again. Sorry, I'm just getting a tissue here, and then I will be back in action. Okay, so what we see here is the blade at the extraction dropping down to the water, right? So we don't see those hands pushing it down, right, onto the thigh to keep that height, right? As we come away now, we get good height, right? But we want to get that good height right from the push down, right? And again, we see here, right? Look at this hand because we feather out. So watch this wrist and watch the shaft, right? There, the wrist is dropping, the wrist is dropping, the wrist is dropping, and the shaft actually went up there, right? See that shaft? It actually goes back up. And the wrist is dropping, but we're not seeing those handles pushing down. So that's what we want. We want to see it draw in, like you've done very nicely, but now push to the lap, right? And like, don't let that shaft go back up because that dropped it back to the water, right? And now we've got the brakes on, and that's going to slow us down. Then here you move it away and you get a little bit of height. So this here now it's starting to look good. You could probably get a little more push down again as we pass here. We want to start rolling around here. But this is nice. Look at this body coming out of bow. Body holds its position. Arms are extending. Body's pivoting over. The knees are just barely starting to come up. We've got past the hips. We set the body angle. We're only like quarter slide and we've set that body angle. This is nice progression out of bow. We could get more height on this blade though. Shoulders look relaxed. There we go. See that reach though? Look at the body here, right? We've got a good angle, and then see that reach. So wait for it. There, we're nice, boom. Right there, see how the body angle starts to change. And then it changes again, right? See that body angle changing. And that's because we're reaching a little bit. So try not to reach just that last little bit. Just let those shoulders sit a little taller, just a little taller, right? It's very subtle, but it will make a bit of a difference. Really nice positioning here at the catch. We've got the blades up. This is what I sort of call a picture perfect catch, okay? And what I mean by that is if you take a picture and everybody looks like this at the catch, people will go, frick, that boat looks awesome. But it should never be at that point. At this point is where we actually want the blades in the water. We don't want them sitting up here looking pretty. We want them in the water making some pretty speed, right? So again, if we have to moderate our timing up the slide to match the entry with the other people in our crew, then that's what we're going to have to do. Which is why rowing a single is nice, because you don't have to time with anybody, right? But doing it in a crew boat, if we can nail it, we can unify that power, and it's going to be really, really nice. Look at this though. This is a tight, this is a tight package. It's ready to explode, right? We got lots of leg compression here. We're ready to go. We're basically just at 90 degrees. Really relaxed shoulders, really extended arms, really good body position. Blades go in, and we see here there's not a lot of movement. There's definitely movement, but not a lot of movement before those blades go in. One frame I like is this. Look at this. Boom. The body's not moving here really very much, but the hands are moving. This is what we want our catches to look like. So everybody look at this, right? Okay, everybody look at this. That's what we want. We want our catch to, this here kind of freeze frames and the hands just lift to take the catch, right? This part we don't want, where it's like kind of moving it in now. But that first bit, just where everything else tries to stay fairly frozen in time and the hands lift, that's what we want. But look at this, blades buried here, right? We're fully buried here, and we're actually buried here. Look at this position. This is strong. Nice looking, nice looking. Boat's a little off balance because we see these blades here still out of the water. Far side blade is now buried, Tracy, and we can see that we've lost some of that stuff with the lack of balance. Again, we see a little bit of tension coming into the shoulders, but not too bad, not too bad. Good horizontal hang. Look at that. That's nice hang. Like, look at this here. This is nice. Arms are straight. Look at this. Now we see the arms draw in at the end, and again we see it hanging in there. Really, really nice. If we get that release coming out nice and high with that push down instead of this, and it wasn't just you today. Look at the video I took of Ray and Helen, because Ray was doing a lot of this as well today, right? Get that push down into the lap. Get that height that we see here and here. And that's going to be a real boon to you, right? Off that release. There you go. Start, if everybody here in this boat right now starts rolling here, gets those blades preparing, dropping them in, boom, we would all be in the water basically right now, right? And if we're in the water now, then that means that everything I do from now, as I frame by frame forward, think of it, we're already accelerating, okay? We would already be accelerating the boat. All this time would be accelerating, 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 and now. So now we're all buried and accelerating. So all this time here could have basically been already accelerating that boat. So it's a lot of sort of wasted time. And we don't want to sit around wasting that time. We want to grab that catch and power it out, right? Like, give ourselves the rest on the recovery, on the slide. But as soon as we hit that top end, those blades bang in and we drive it away. So there you go. So that's sort of my my thoughts on this. But let's watch it at sort of full speed here, right? Actually, let's watch it at kind of half speed and see what it kind of looks like here. Uh-oh. Now my machine has to think here. Here's where my computer poops out on me. Oh no. Let's refresh. See if that works. There we go. Okay. So we look at this here. But again, we look at this at half speed. That's not looking too bad, right? Not looking too bad. Rolling, dropping them in. We're going to go to full speed now. And we're going to go back to 2160. Holy smokes, is that even possible? Hang on. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Maybe that's why my machine couldn't load it, because it was just too high intensity. All right, let's just go to regular old 1080. There we go. Now we're looking at some nice clear stuff here. Holy, what is going on with this thing? Okay, so we will look at this though, and let's come back here. Now, let's watch it smooth. This looks not too bad though, right? This looks not too bad. When we look at this, they all enter pretty close to the same time. We've got 3 of 4 coming out at the same time. Bodies are moving pretty nicely together. We're holding those shoulders for the most part in front of the hips through the leg drive. And we can see how well this boat is moving through the water, right? We look at sort of the speed of the water, and we don't see huge changes in how fast that boat is going, right? Which is good. So that's a positive thing, right? We see this here, right? We see that nice sort of relatively continuous speed of the boat. If we take those catches a little longer though, it's going to move that boat really nice for us, really nice. And if we keep those blades in the water, just that little extra bit at the end, that's going to be really smooth, really moving nice. So there you go. So I hope that this here has been somewhat helpful. It may have been, it may not have, I'm not sure, but hopefully you got something good out of it. There you go.